The tire exploded with a crack like gunfire, hurling chunks of rubber across the rain-slicked shoulder of I-94, and Nicholas slammed on the brakes just in time to avoid plunging into the guardrail. His hands shook on the wheel, heart pounding as the Mercedes fishtailed to a stop, the wipers slapping futilely against the downpour that blurred the Chicago skyline into a smear of neon and steel. "Fuck," he whispered, slamming his palm against the dash, the weight of the empty highway pressing in like the loneliness he'd been running from all night, until the shadow of a figure emerged from the storm, tire iron in hand, eyes fierce and unyielding under the brim of a soaked hoodie. Matthew wiped the grease from his hands on the hem of his threadbare jeans, the kind that had been washed so many times they felt like tissue paper against his skin. At 22, he'd seen enough flat tires on the south side to know this one was a goner, deep gash from whatever debris the truckers had kicked up on this godforsaken stretch of interstate. The rain hammered down like it had a personal grudge, turning the asphalt into a black mirror that reflected the taillights of the sleek black sedan ahead. He hadn't meant to stop. He was just cutting through on his beat-up Schwinn, late for the graveyard shift at the auto shop. But something about the way the car had skidded, helpless, almost human, pulled him in. "Hey, man, you okay in there?" His voice cut through the storm, raw from the cold, but steady. No one answered at first, just the rhythmic thump of the wipers. Then the door cracked open, and out stepped a guy who looked like he'd been poured from a bottle of scotch. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair slicked back, suit rumpled but expensive, the kind that screamed boardrooms and penthouses. Nicholas, though Matthew didn't know his name yet, blinked against the rain, his blue eyes wide with a mix of shock and something softer, like gratitude wrapped in fear. Yeah, I'm good. Just shit. The tire." Nicholas's voice was polished, East Coast clipped, but it cracked at the edges, betraying the exhaustion underneath. He glanced at the shredded rubber, then back at Matthew, really seeing him for the first time, tall and lean, skin the deep brown of polished mahogany, close-cropped hair beaded with water, a faint scar tracing his jawline from a bar fight he'd rather forget. There was a quiet strength there, unassuming but electric, and in that split second, Nicholas felt the ground shift, not from the storm, but from the boy standing there like he'd been conjured from the city's underbelly. Matthew crouched by the wheel well, his hoodie sagging heavy with rain. "Lemme take a look." "You got a spare?" He didn't wait for permission. Folks like this, lost in the wrong neighborhood, didn't carry spares half the time, too busy texting or calling their Uber Black. But Nicholas nodded, popping the trunk with a fumble of keys. Inside was a pristine donut tire, still wrapped in plastic, mocking the chaos around it. As Matthew jacked up the car, muscles coiling under his soaked shirt, Nicholas hovered, useless but compelled to watch. "You don't have to do this," he said, rain dripping from his cufflinks. "I can call AAA." Matthew snorted, a low rumble that cut through the thunder. "AA's gonna take an hour in this mess. And you look like you need to be somewhere dry." He yanked the lug nuts free with a grunt, the tire iron spinning like an extension of his arm. "Growing up in Englewood, you'd learn quick, help when you can, 'cause tomorrow it might be you with the busted wheel and no one stopping." Nicholas leaned against the fender, arms crossed to ward off the chill. Close. He smelled like cologne and stress, sandalwood undercut with the sharp tang of bourbon on his breath. "What's your name?" he asked, the question slipping out softer than intended. "Matthew." "Matt." He didn't look up, focused on aligning the spare. "Yours." Nicholas. Hale. The name hung there, heavy with the weight of Hale Enterprises, the logistics empire his father had built and he'd inherited at 38, after a heart attack that left Nicholas scrambling to hold the pieces together. But out here, under the sodium glow of the overpass, felt like just a word. By the time the spare was bolted on, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and Matthew's hands were black with grime. He stood, wiping them on his jeans again, and met Nicholas's gaze. Those blue eyes, piercing, like they saw straight through the armor Matthew wore against the world, held him a beat too long. "Drive safe, Mr. Hale. And next time, check your pressures." Nicholas reached into his wallet, pulling out a damp 100. "For your trouble." Matthew eyed it, jaw tightening. Handout stung. Reminders of the food stamps his mama had stretched thin after his dad split. "Nah. Consider it Southside hospitality." But as he turned to his bike, Nicholas's hand caught his arm. Gentle, but firm. "Wait. Let me at least give you a ride. That thing's gonna rust through before you hit the next exit." Matthew hesitated, the touch lingering like a spark. No one touched him like that, casual, but charged. "I got it. Please." Nicholas's voice dropped, almost pleading. "It's the least I can do after you saved my ass." In the end, Matthew slung his bike in the trunk and slid into the passenger seat, the leather warm against his chilled skin. The car hummed to life, AC blasting, and for the first few miles, they rode in silence, the radio murmuring some old Springsteen track about highways and ghosts. Nicholas stole glances, piecing together the puzzle of this kid. The faded Cubs cap pushed back, the silver chain glinting at his neck with a tiny cross, the way his fingers drummed a restless rhythm on his knee. "So, what brings a guy like you out in this?" Matthew broke the quiet, nodding at the storm-lashed windows. Nicholas chuckled, bitter. "Running from a board meeting. Or toward one. Same difference." He paused, fingers white-knuckled on the wheel. "What about you? Mechanic? Part-time? Bouncing at a bar downtown too. Pays the rent." Matthew shrugged, but his eyes flicked to the dashboard clock, 11:47 p.m. Late already. The conversation flowed easier after that, halting at first, then spilling like the rain outside. Nicholas talked about the city, how he'd grown up in the Gold Coast, summers in the Hamptons, but Chicago's grit called him back. Matthew shared scraps. His mama's gospel choir at church, the way the L train rattled his dreams at night. By the time they pulled up to the shop on Halsted, the tension had eased into something warmer, tentative. "Thanks again," Matthew said, grabbing his bike. But Nicholas was already scribbling on a business card. "Call me if you ever need a job. Real one. Hale's got a fleet, trucks, warehouses. Pays better than slinging drinks." Matthew pocketed it, skeptical but intrigued. "Yeah? What's the catch?" "No catch." Nicholas's smile was crooked, disarming. "Just paying it forward." As the Mercedes pulled away, taillights fading into the night, Matthew stood there, card burning a hole in his pocket. He didn't know it yet, but that flat tire wasn't an accident. It was fate's cruel hook, reeling him into a world of silk ties and shattered secrets. The next morning, Nicholas woke in his Lincoln Park penthouse to the skyline mocking him through floor-to-ceiling glass. Sunlight sliced across the king bed, empty as always, the sheets tangled from a night of fitful sleep. His phone buzzed, 10 missed calls from his sister, Elena, the family fixer, reminding him of the dinner with investors. But his mind drifted back to the kid on the highway, Matthew, with his quiet fire and calloused hands. It had been years since anyone looked at him without wanting something. Money, connections, the Hale legacy. He poured coffee, black and scalding, and stared at the card he'd mocked up himself last night, his personal number scrawled in Sharpie. Stupid, he thought. Risky. At 45, divorced twice, both times to women who never quite fit, he knew better than to chase shadows. But something about Matthew stuck. A reminder of the boy he'd buried under boardroom battles, the one who'd snuck into bohemian bars in the 90s, kissing boys under strobe lights before AIDS and ambition scared him straight. By noon, he'd fired off an email to HR. Bring in Matthew Washington, if he calls. Reference the tire incident. Make it worth his while. Matthew, meanwhile, was elbow-deep in a transmission at the shop, the air thick with oil and curses. His boss, Old Man Petrovich, barked orders from the office, but Matthew's thoughts kept circling back to the card. A real job, a Hale, sounded like bullshit, the kind of white knight fantasy that ended with him shining shoes in the lobby. But the $100 Nicholas had slipped him anyway, after the ride, bought groceries for a week, and that cross around his neck felt heavier, like Mama's voice whispering, "Take the leap, baby. God's got the net." That evening, after a double shift that left him reeking of transmission fluid, he dialed the number. "Mr. Hale, it's Matt." From last night, Nicholas's voice crackled through, warm as bourbon. "I was hoping you'd call. Lunch tomorrow? My treat." They met at a diner off Michigan Avenue. Greasy spoons and vinyl booths, the kind Nicholas hadn't set foot in since college. Matthew arrived early, scrubbed clean, in his one good button-down, the one from his high school graduation. Nicholas was already there, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a mogul and more like a man adrift. Over patty melts and fries, the barriers crumbled. Nicholas confessed the board was circling, pressuring him to remarry. Stability for the shareholders, they said. Like I'm some merger asset. His laugh was hollow. Matthew nodded, dipping a fry in ketchup. Families like that. Mine wants me settled with a nice girl from church. Haven't told him yet. The yet hung there, unspoken, that he liked boys, had since he was 16 and stole kisses behind the bleachers. Coming out in Englewood? Recipe for a beatdown. Nicholas's eyes softened. Yet's a brave word. By the time they parted, Nicholas had handed him the offer letter. Junior mechanic in the fleet division. $55,000 starting. Benefits. Start Monday. Matthew stared at the paper, pulse racing. Why me? Because you fixed more than a tire last night. Nicholas's hand brushed his, accidental, electric. You fixed something in me. Monday came like a fever dream. The Hale warehouse sprawled across the west side, a concrete cathedral of forklifts and manifests, humming with purpose. Matthew clocked in at 7 a.m., badge clipped to his collar, and dove into the work, diagnostics on semis, oil changes on exec sedans. It was honest labor, but elevated, no Petrovich yelling, no nickel-and-diming for parts. And Nicholas? He kept his distance at first. Nods in the hall. A coffee left on his workbench with a sticky note. Good first week. But distance didn't last. One Friday, After a brutal hailstorm grounded half the fleet, Nicholas wandered into the bay, sleeves rolled, offering to help. "Show me how it's done." "Hotshot." Matthew laughed, handing him a wrench. "You sure? These hands look made for signing checks, not turning bolts." They worked side by side, shoulders brushing, banter flowing like the beer they cracked later at a dive near the yard. Nicholas opened up about his ex-wives, arranged affections that fizzled into alimony checks. "I thought it was me." "Defective." His voice dipped, eyes on the scarred bar top. Matthew sipped his IPA, heart twisting. "Nah. Just wrong puzzle pieces." He paused. Then, "I get it. Dated a girl once, to shut mama up. Felt like lying in church." The air thickened, charged. Nicholas's knee pressed against his under the table, not pulling away. "What if? It's not lying if it's real." Matthew's breath caught. "Real." The word echoed as they stepped into the alley. Rain starting again, soft this time. Nicholas turned, cupping his face, thumb tracing that scar. "Tell me to stop." "Don't." Their kiss was fire, desperate, rain-slicked, tasting of hops and hunger. Matthew's hands fisted in Nicholas's shirt, pulling him closer, the world narrowing to the heat between them. It was messy, perfect, a dam breaking after years of drought. They tumbled into Nicholas's penthouse that night, city lights sprawling below like a promise. Clothes shed in a trail from door to bed, bodies mapping uncharted territory. Nicholas was reverent, tracing Matthew's skin like scripture, collarbone, abs honed from shop work, the curve of his hips. Matthew, bolder, pinned him down, lips and teeth claiming what he'd craved since that highway pullover. In the afterglow, tangled in sheets, Nicholas whispered, "This is dangerous." Matthew traced his jaw. Best kind. Weeks blurred into months, a secret rhythm pulsing beneath the Hale Empire's facade. By day, Matthew was the rising star in the garage, diagnosing a tricky fuel line here, training new hires there, his laugh echoing off the bays like a bomb. Nicholas watched from afar, pride swelling in his chest. But it was the nights that bound them. Stolen dinners at hole-in-the-wall Tacarius, where Nicholas learned to love Al Pastor and Matthew savored escargot. Lazy Sundays in the penthouse, jazz on the stereo, bodies lazy and loved. Felt like a miracle, this thing blooming between them, two worlds colliding without shattering. Matthew moved into a studio in Logan Square, courtesy of a relocation bonus from HR, close enough for midnight drives but far enough to dodge questions. He sent money home, bought Mama a new washer, watched her eyes light up over FaceTime without asking where it came from. "God's working overtime, baby," she'd say, and he'd smile, thinking of Nicholas's hands instead. But miracles have fault lines. Elena noticed first, the lingering glances at company picnics, the way Nicholas's calendar filled with vendor meetings that smelled like cologne and youth. She cornered him in the boardroom after a quarterly review, her red sols clicking like accusations. "Nicky, who's the golden boy in maintenance? The one you keep promoting?" Elena was all sharp edges, 52. Twice divorced, the family's iron spine. She'd buried their parents' scandals and now guarded the Hale name like Fort Knox. Nicholas feigned nonchalance, stacking reports. "Matthew? Kid's a natural. Saved us on that fleet recall last month." Her eyes narrowed, lipstick a slash of crimson. "Kid. Right?" Just make sure he's not saving anything else. The implication landed like a slap. Don't fuck up the legacy, brother. Again. He brushed it off, but the seed took root. That night, over takeout lo mein in the penthouse, Nicholas paced, words tumbling out. Elena's sniffing around. Thinks you're a distraction. Matthew, cross-legged on the rug, paused mid-chopstick. Am I? His tone was light, but his eyes, dark pools of vulnerability, betrayed the fear. Nicholas dropped beside him, pulling him close. Hell no. You're the only real thing I've got. Their kiss was fierce, reaffirming, but as Matthew's hands roamed, Nicholas tensed. Wait. We should be careful. More careful. The word stung, a crack in their bubble. Matthew pulled back, searching his face. Careful how? Like, no more public lunches. Like, maybe slow down on the promotions. Keep it professional. Nicholas's voice cracked, hating himself. It was protection, he told himself, for Matthew's job, for both their hearts. But Matthew saw the truth. Fear. The same fear that had Nicholas marrying Cynthia in 2005. A WASP banker who drained him dry before the ink on the divorce dried. Professional, he echoed, standing abruptly. Got it, boss. He left before dawn, the door clicking like a judgment. The rift widened slowly, insidious as rust. Matthew threw himself into work, volunteering for overtime, burying doubts in engine grease. Nicholas buried his in spreadsheets, late nights at the office blurring into dawn. They met in shadows, quickies in the penthouse elevator, coded texts, fleet check, 10 p.m. It was passion stripped to survival, but the tenderness frayed. Then came the betrayal, sharp as shattered glass. It started with a whisper in the break room, some tech named Rico, bitter over a past promotion, snapping pics on the sly. Matthew slipping into Nicholas's office after hours, the door ajar just enough to catch a silhouette, a hand on a shoulder. He shopped it to a rag like Chicago Insider. Anonymous tip, Hail Air's dirty secret? The story dropped online at 2 a.m. A tawdry splash. Logistics lord in steamy fling with blue-collar bow? Blurry photos. Speculation laced with homophobic barbs. Is this the downfall of the Hale dynasty? By breakfast. It was trending. Elena's fury exploding via voicemail. Fix this, Nicholas. Now, he called Matthew from the car. Voice wrecked. It's out. The photos. Matthew, nursing coffee in his studio, felt the world tilt. What photos? Us. In the office. Nicholas choked. I'm sorry. I should've. Should've what? Locked the door. Bitterness surged. Hot and ugly. You said be careful. This your idea of careful. It's not your fault. But it was Rico's grudge. Yes. But Nicholas's hesitation had kept them hiding, ripe for exposure. Matthew hung up, chest heaving. He drove to the warehouse blind, rage fueling him. The crew parted like the Red Sea as he stormed the bays, wrench in hand, smashing a toolbox in a spray of metal. Who the fuck sold us out? He roared, eyes wild. Rico slunk forward, smirking. Hey, man, it's just business. Hale's got enemies. Matthew lunged, fist connecting with jaw in a sickening crack. Alarms wailed, security swarmed, and by noon, he was escorted out, fired, blackballed, the miracle curdled to ash. Nicholas arrived too late, Tyascu, begging HR to reverse it. He's the best we have. Elena intercepted him in the hall, arm like a vice. He's poison now. You want the stock to tank? The board's already calling for your head. That night, Matthew sat on his fire escape, city humming indifferent below. His phone buzzed, Nicholas, pleading for a meet. Against better judgment, he went. The diner, their spot, felt haunted now, booths scarred with memory. I quit, Nicholas said flatly, sliding into the seat. No suspended, self-imposed, while the storm brewed. Matthew's laugh was hollow. Noble. But too late. The betrayal wasn't just Rico's. It was Nicholas folding under pressure, choosing empire over them. I love you, the words burst out, raw, unbidden. Nicholas's eyes glistened, hands reaching across the formica. Matthew recoiled. Love? This ain't love. It's a scandal waiting to bury us. He stood, chair scraping. You helped me once. On that highway. Now help yourself, stay away. He walked out into the autumn chill, leaves skittering like accusations. Nicholas followed, grabbing his arm in the lot. Don't do this. We can fight. Fight for what? Your sister's approval. Tears burned, hot on cold cheeks. I'm done being your secret. Nicky. The slap of the car door echoed as Matthew peeled out in his Civic, leaving Nicholas in the neon glow, alone with the wreckage. The fallout cascaded. Protests erupted outside Hale HQ. LGBTQ plus groups chanting for accountability. Headlines twisting the narrative. Queer love or corporate crime. Nicholas holed up in the penthouse, fielding Elena's ultimatums. Step down, or she would. For the family, she hissed over speakerphone. Matthew, jobless and raw, crashed with his cousin Jamal in Bronzeville, nights blurring into bar shifts and bad decisions. He hooked up with a stranger once, some finance bro at a club, but it felt hollow bodies without souls. Mama called, voice trembling. Saw the news. Baby. That man. He hurt you. Not like the world will, he lied, throat tight. But the miracle lingered, stubborn as hope. A week later, an email pinged, anonymous sender, link to a GoFundMe. Support for Matthew Washington, mechanic, activist, survivor. It had exploded, thousands donated. Messages pouring in, you're brave. Keep fighting. At the bottom, a note, from one who owes you a tire change. And he didn't reply, but he withdrew enough for rent, donated the rest to a shelter. It was a start. Nicholas, meanwhile, cracked. At the next board meeting, he stood tall, unbowed, and outed himself fully. Yes, I'm gay. And yes, I love him. If that's a problem, find a new CEO. The room froze, then fractured walkouts, whispers, but a few nods, old allies surfacing. Elena stayed silent, eyes wet. You're gonna destroy us. No, he said softly. I'm saving us. He drove to Bronzeville that night, unannounced, rain sheeting the windshield like Judgment Day. Jamal answered the door, wary. He don't want to see you. Let him decide. Nicholas waited in the drizzle, soaked to the bone, until Matthew appeared, t-shirt and sweats, arms crossed, guard up. Go home, Nicholas. Not without saying this, I was wrong. Scared. But I'm done hiding. He He stepped closer, voice breaking. Fight with me. Or let me go for good. Matthew's resolve wavered, the pull magnetic. You think words fix this? No. But actions might. Nicholas held out a key, not to the penthouse, but to a garage downtown, leased in both names. Ours. No empire attached. The rain intensified, blurring lines. Matthew took the key, fingers brushing, and pulled him inside, not to forgive, but to begin. Winter clamped down on Chicago like a vice, snow piling against the windows of their shared garage, a modest two-bay on Fulton Market, rented with Nicholas's severance. He'd stepped down as CEO, Elena ascending with a frosty nod of acceptance. It wasn't hail polish. It was theirs. Grease-stained floors, a mini fridge stocked with Goose Island, walls papered with Polaroids, them under the hood of a '67 Mustang, laughing, a candid of Matthew's hand on Nicholas's knee at a dive jazz club. The betrayal scar tissue pulled tight some nights, arguments flaring over nothing, Nicholas's habit of over-apologizing, Matthew's walls snapping up like storm shutters, but they patched it with talk, deep and delving, until dawn pinked the sky. Matthew's star rose unexpectedly. The GoFundMe morphed into advocacy. He spoke at a pride rally in Grant Park, voice steady over the mic. Love ain't a luxury. It's a right, same as air. The crowd roared, cameras flashed, and suddenly he was fielding offers, consultant gigs for queer-owned shops, a podcast slot on Windy City Outlaws. Nicholas watched from the wings, chest swelling with a pride fiercer than any boardroom win. You're unstoppable, he'd murmur later, lips to temple. But peace was fragile, laced with old ghosts. Elena thawed slowly, dinners at her Lakeshore Drive condo, where she'd slide contracts across the table, equity shares in Hale. For the future, Nicholas signed, but Matthew demurred. I build my own now, he'd say, welding a custom exhaust in their garage, sparks flying like defiant stars. Spring brought green shoots, literal and not. They planted a window box at the garage, basil and tomatoes twisting toward the sun. One afternoon, sweat slicked from tuning a client's Harley, Matthew caught Nicholas staring, that familiar hunger in his eyes. What? He teased, wiping his brow. You. Nicholas crossed the bay, backing him against the workbench. All grease and glory. Their kiss started slow, building to a frenzy, tools clattering to the floor, bodies urgent against the cold metal. It was reclamation, each touch erasing the diner's sting, the photo's shame. After, sprawled on a drop cloth, Nicholas traced Matthew's chest. Marry me, Matthew stilled, breath catching. What? Not legal yet. But mine. Officially, Nicholas's voice trembled, blue eyes earnest. I want the world to know. Matthew sat up, heart hammering. Marriage. The word evoked Mama's Bible, church pews, the hypocrisy he'd fled. But with Nicholas solid, flawed, loving, it felt possible. Yeah, he whispered, pulling him close. Hell yeah. The engagement party was low-key. Jamal grilling ribs on the roof. A playlist of Nina Simone and Chance the Rapper. Elena arriving with champagne and a tentative smile. To miracles, she toasted, clinking glasses, and for a moment, the family fractures mended. But summer storms brew fast in the Midwest. The conflict reignited with Victor Lang, a venture capitalist with a grudge, passed over for a Hale merger years back, now circling like a shark, He funneled cash to a smear campaign, digging into Nicholas's past. The 90s indiscretions, a hushed settlement from his first divorce, infidelity. They whispered. Then Matthews, juvie record at 16, shoplifting formula for his diabetic sister. The bar fight scar from defending a trans kid at a Southside dive. It culminated at a gala, Hale's annual fundraiser at the Art Institute, chandeliers dripping light over tuxes and gowns. Nicholas and Matthew arrived arm in arm. First public outing since the scandal. Matthew in a tailored black suit that hugged his frame, Nicholas beaming beside him. Whispers rippled, but heads turned with admiration too. Brave, they murmured. Victor cornered them by the Monet, scotch in hand, smile oily. Hale, still slumming it, his eyes raked Matthew, dismissive. Hope he's worth the headlines. Nicholas stiffened, fist clenching. Walk away, Vic, but Matthew stepped forward, chin up. Slumming? Nah. I'm upgrading. Laughter bubbled from nearby guests, deflating Victor's bluster. Later, on the museum steps, under a canopy of stars, Nicholas exhaled. You handled that like a pro. Learned from the best. Matthew grinned, but unease nod, Victor's parting shot. Hissed low, enjoy it while it lasts. It didn't last. 2 days later, a leaked email chain hit the wires. Nicholas's old lawyer, bribed by Victor, spilling dirt on the first divorce, not just infidelity, but a male lover, hush money to keep it buried. The twist? The lover was Victor's cousin, scorned and suicidal. The payout twisted into blood money. The press feasted. Hale's hidden horrors. Suicide cover-up? Protests swelled anew. This time against Nicholas, queer predator. The trolls bayed. Elena called. Voice steel. Resign the shares. Or I will. Matthew found him in the garage. Whiskey bottle half empty. Eyes hollow. It's over, Nicholas muttered, staring at the Harley they'd restored together. All of it. No. Matthew knelt, taking the bottle. Victor's playing dirty. We fight back, but Nicholas pulled away, self-loathing a chasm. You don't get it. I am dirty. That kid, 20, lost. I used money to silence it because I was scared. Ashamed. Matthew's gut twisted, betrayal anew. Not of him, but of the man he'd built his heart around. You should have told me. Would you have stayed? Nicholas's voice broke, tears carving tracks. I'm broken, Matt. Run. The argument escalated. Words weapons. Matthew hurling accusations of secrecy. Nicholas confessing fragments of a youth poisoned by conversion therapy, whispers from his preacher uncle. I thought I could outrun it. Build something clean. Clean, Matthew roared, shoving a toolbox that crashed in a cacophony. Love ain't a ledger. Nicky, it's messy as this shop. He stormed out, tires squealing into the night, ending up at Mama's stoop in Englewood, first time in months. She pulled him inside. No questions, just cornbread and tea, her hand on his. Storms pass, baby. But you gotta stand in them. Dawn found him driving back, resolve hardening. The garage door was ajar. Nicholas slumped against the workbench, asleep in exhaustion. Matthew shook him gently. Wake up. We're not done. Nicholas stirred, eyes red-rimmed. Why? 'Cause I see you. All of you. Matthew cupped his face, thumb brushing stubble. Flaws and all. Now let's bury this ghost. They hired a PI, discreet, Queer himself, uncovering Victor's web, payoffs to outlets, fabricated docs. Armed with truth, Nicholas went public again. Oppressor outside Hale Tower, Matthew at his side. The past haunts us all, he said, voice steady. But silence kills. That young man deserved better, I failed him. Victor Lang exploits that pain for profit. Here's the proof. Files released. Lawsuits filed. Victor crumbled, his firm imploding under scrutiny. Elena, surprisingly, backed the play family first. She wired, with a winky emoji that almost passed for warmth. Summer waned, the garage thriving with custom jobs, word of mouth from the gala crowd. One evening, as cicadas hummed, Nicholas proposed again, this time on one knee amid oil stains. Ring simple platinum. For real this time, Matthew pulled him up, kissing deep. Always was. Fall painted Chicago in fire. Maples blazing along the lakefront. The air crisp with promise. The wedding was small, defiant. A rooftop ceremony at their garage. String lights twinkling against the skyline. Jamal officiating with a grin and a dog-eared Bible. Mama wept through vows. Elena clinked flutes with uncharacteristic gusto. And when Nicholas kissed Matthew, slow, sure, the whoops drowned the distant L train rumble. Honeymoon was a road trip. Route 66 in reverse. Taos for Adobe sunsets. Vegas for neon absurdity. Ending in San Francisco's fog-kissed hills. They talked everything, kids maybe, via surrogate. A foundation for queer youth. Seated with Hale shares. Miracles compound, Nicholas joked. Hand laced in Matthew's over a diner counter. Back home, life settled into groove. Matthew's podcast exploded. Episodes raw with stories like there's tires to trials, love on the highway. Nicholas consulted freelance, teaching logistics at a community college. Nights grading papers while Matthew tinkered beside him. Intimacy deepened. Beyond bodies. Shared silences. Inside jokes. The way Nicholas's laugh lines crinkled when Matthew hummed gospel tunes. But high tides pull undercurrents. The first crack was subtle, a cough. Nicholas waving it off as allergies. Then fatigue. Shadows under his eyes. Just the grind, he'd say. But Matthew noticed the weight loss. The way shirts hung looser on his frame. It was the fainting spell that shattered denial. Collapsing in the garage mid-sentence. Toolbox clattering. Nicholas woke to paramedics and Matthew's terrified face. AR lights buzzed harsh. Tests. Scans. The on-call doc's grave nod. Stage 3 lymphoma. Aggressive. The word landed like the tire explosion that started it all. Sudden. Deafening. Nicholas gripped Matthew's hand. White-knuckled. Fuck. Chemo started immediate. Infusions in a sterile room overlooking the loop. Nicholas's hair shedding like autumn leaves. Matthew was there every drip, holding basins for nausea, smuggling in cornbread from Mama, reading aloud from their podcast fan mail. Listen to this. Your story saved my marriage. See? You're still changing lives. Nicholas mustered a smile. But nights were hell. Fevered dreams of boardrooms and buried boys, waking sweat-soaked, clinging to Matthew. Don't leave, he'd rasp, even asleep. The conflict peaked in winter's grip, a blizzard burying the city. Elena visited, bearing soup and spreadsheets, estate plans, contingencies. He's Hale, she said post-chemo, as Nicholas dozed. We protect our own. Matthew bristled. He ain't property. Her eyes softened. Rare vulnerability. I know. But lose him. She trailed off, squeezing his arm. It was as close to I love you as she got. Betrayal reared its head anew. Internal this time. Nicholas's pride. That old demon. Whispering he was a burden. One dawn. Post-treatment fog. He packed a bag. Quiet. Deliberate. Go to Taos alone, the note read. Live free. I'm holding you back. Matthew found it on the kitchen counter. Coffee still hot. Panic surged. Then fury. He tore through snow-choked streets to the train station, spotting Nicholas on the platform, coat thin, duffel at feet, face gaunt but determined. What the hell? Matthew grabbed his arm, breath fogging. Running again? Nicholas's eyes welled. You deserve whole. Not this half a man puking rainbows. Matthew yanked him close, heedless of stares. Half? You're my whole damn world. You idiot. Tears froze on lashes. We vowed in sickness. Remember? Or was that just pretty words? The train whistle wailed, but Nicholas dropped the bag, sagging into him. I'm scared. Me too. Matthew held tighter, snow swirling like confetti. But scared together. Back home, they rebuilt. Therapy sessions laced with laughter. A support group where Nicholas shared his youth's ghosts, Matthew his Southside armor. Spring bloomed defiant. Nicholas's hair a salt fuzz, but scans showed remission's edge. They celebrated with a Harley ride, wind whipping. Matthew's arms locked around him, the highway a ribbon of second chances. Yet the drama crested one stormy June eve, the kind that flooded underpasses and frayed nerves. Nicholas, stronger but fragile, argued for pausing the foundation. Till I'm steady, Matthew pushed back. Now. While it matters. Voices rose. Old wounds reopening. Secrecy. Shame. You always protect me like I'm glass, Nicholas shouted, hurling a wrench that pinged harmlessly off the wall. And you always run like I'm temporary, Matthew fired back, chest heaving. Silence crashed. Thunderous. Then Nicholas crumpled, sobs racking. What if I die? Leave you widowed at 25. Matthew pulled him down, onto the garage floor amid scattered tools. Then I grieve. Loud. And live, for you. His voice cracked. But you're not going anywhere. Hail. Not without me dragging you back. They made love there. Slow and sacred bodies a map of survival. Scars badges of battles won. Afterward, whispers in the dark. Dreams deferred, but not denied. The climax hit unspectacularly, a routine check turning dire. Metastasis, the oncologist said. Voice clinical. Options limited. Hospice discussions. Nicholas nodded. Stoic, but in the car, he shattered. I fix trucks. Mergers. Can't fix this. Matthew gripped the wheel. Jaw set. Then we don't fix. We fight. Ugly. All in. The miracle's final turn was human. Raw. A bucket list cobbled from memories. Road trip redux. Abridged. RV loaned from Jamal, hitting diners. Blues bars. Ending at that highway pull-off. Marker for their start. Nicholas, frail in a wheelchair, traced the guardrail. Here. Where you saved me. Matthew knelt, rain pattering soft. Nah. Where we saved each other. Back in Chicago. The end loomed gentle. Hospice in the penthouse, Elena footing the bill. Mama singing hymns, their garage a revolving door of friends. Nicholas lingered weeks, lucid to the last, eyes locked on Matthew's. "Love you," he breathed, hand fading in his. Then, quiet as a tire deflating, he was gone. 47, too soon, but surrounded. The funeral was a testament. Church overflowing, rainbow flags flanking the casket, eulogies from boardrooms to back alleys. Matthew spoke last, voice steady. "He taught me miracles ain't magic. Their choices, stopping in the rain, holding on through storms. Grief hollowed him, nights endless, but he rose, foundation launched. Hale's highway aiding queer mechanics, scholarships for Southside kids." 1 year on, at the overpass memorial plaque, Elena's gift. He traced the inscription, Nicholas Hale, fixed more than tires. A flat tire screeched nearby, echo of fate. Matthew pulled over, toolkit ready. The driver, a wide-eyed teen, stammered thanks. As he worked, rain starting, Matthew smiled. The miracle continued. 2 years blurred in a haze of purpose. Chicago's pulse syncing with Matthew's own. Faster now, fueled by legacy. The foundation thrived. Hale's highway a beacon. Workshops in Englewood teaching auto skills to at-risk youth. Mentorships pairing them with queer elders. Matthew's podcast evolved. Episodes laced with Nicholas's stories. Unvarnished. Healing. "He wasn't perfect," he'd say into the mic, voice gravelly with truth. "But damn if he didn't try." Elena became unlikely kin, weekly brunches at her condo, dissecting board minutes over mimosas. "You're the spine I never had," she'd admit, clinking glasses. She funneled Hale profits into the foundation, a quiet atonement, and when Matthew dated, a barista named Theo, sweet and steady, she vetted him over coffee. "Don't break him," she warned, half jest. But romance simmered slow. Nicholas's ghost was gentle, not haunting, a cologne whiff on the wind, a Springsteen lyric on the radio. Theo understood. Their nights easy movie marathons, hands laced without pressure. Whenever, he'd whisper, and Matthew breathed easier. The drama reignited subtly, a spark from Victor's ashes. Out on bail, lawsuit pending. He slithered back, anonymous donations to anti-queer PACs. Whispers to media. Hale's widower profiting off tragedy. It peaked at the Foundation's 3rd annual gala. A warehouse bash on the west side. Forklifts as bars. Mechanics in tuxes. Matthew keynote. Spotlight hot. Nicholas taught us love's a tool, wrench for the stuck, jack for the fallen. Applause thundered, but backstage, Elena pulled him aside. "Victor's here." Stirring shit. Sure enough, by the craft cocktails, Victor cornered him, suave in seersucker, smile venom. Grift's going well. Nicky'd be proud, milking his corpse. Matthew's fist clenched, scar itching. "Get out." "Or what?" Another sob story. Victor leaned in, breath sour. "I knew him, kid. Before you. Weak. Always was." The betrayal's echo, Nicholas's hidden past, flared, but Matthew held. Security escorted Victor out. Gala unbroken, but doubt gnawed. Was legacy just polished pain? Theo found him later, on the loading dock, city lights fractal below. "You okay?" Matthew exhaled, leaning into him. "Thinking 'bout running." Like he did. Theo cupped his face. "Ice kind." then run to something. Not from. Dawn brought clarity. Oppressor, foundation board backing him. Victor's lies end here, Matthew declared. Files of his own bank records. Witness statements. The countersuit landed like a gut punch. Victor's empire teetering. Summer solstice. Matthew scattered Nicholas's ashes at the overpass. Windswept. Cathartic. "Miss you," he murmured, cross-glinting. "But I'm good." Fall deepened bonds. Theo moved in. Their rhythm syncing, lazy brunches. Harley rides. Talks of adoption. Mama met him at church. Beaming approval. Boys got soul. The human climax unfolded quietly. A highway echo. Late November. Snow flurrying. Matthew spotted a Mercedes skidding. Taillights frantic. Tire shredding. He pulled over. Heart skipping. Not fate's rerun, but a chance to pay forward. The driver emerged. Young white guy. 20s. Suit ill-fitting. Eyes wide with city boy panic. "Help," Matthew grinned, jacking the car. Names met. Got a spare. As they worked, banter flowed. The kid, Alex, fresh from NYU, interning at a startup, confessing dreams and doubts. "Chicago's brutal. Brutal builds you," Matthew said, bolting the donut. "Stick around. Miracles happen." Alex pressed a 50, insistent this time. "For the legend." Matthew pocketed it, chuckling. Legend. Nicholas would have loved that. Dropping Alex at his loop high-rise. Matthew's phone buzzed. "Theo. Dinner? Made your mama's cornbread." Home waited, garage lights on. Life unfolding. That night, over candlelit plates, Theo knelt, ring simple, echoing Nicholas's. "Build with me." Matthew pulled him up, kissing fierce. Always. Winter solstice gala. Foundation packed. Youth testimonials. Elena toasting. Victor's name mud in headlines. Matthew danced with Theo, then alone, swaying to Springsteen. Ghost smiling in his mind's eye. The miracle? Not the tire, or the love, or the loss. It was the chain, one act rippling, changing trajectories. Matthew, once boy, now man scarred, Hole knew it deep. As snow fell soft outside, he whispered to the stars, "Thanks, Nicky, for the start." And the highway hummed on, endless, full of pullovers waiting.